INFJs are known for being kind, thoughtful, and deeply intuitive. They often seem calm and collected, but there's much more going on under the surface. Many INFJs carry habits that don't match what people expect. These aren't just personality quirks. They are deeper ways of coping that can often be linked to neurodivergent behavior. While INFJs might not always know how to name these habits, they feel the weight of them every day. Some of these behaviors come from feeling different or misunderstood. Others come from a deep need to protect their inner world. INFJs are private by nature, but when you add traits like sensitivity, overthinking, or emotional overload, you get patterns of behavior that often stay hidden. These habits don't always make sense to others, which is why INFJs rarely talk about them. They don't want to be judged, and they don't want to explain something that feels hard to put into words. The truth is, many INFJs live with habits that resemble traits seen in neurodivergent people. This doesn't mean every INFJ is neurodivergent, but it does mean some of their behaviors fall into similar patterns. These habits help them feel safe. They help them make sense of the world. But they can also be exhausting, especially when kept secret. In this video, we're going to talk about the hidden habits that many INFJs keep from everyone, even the people closest to them. These are habits that show up quietly in everyday life. They may look like being too quiet, or too picky, or too distant, but they come from a much deeper place. We'll go through 6 of these habits. We'll explain where they come from and why INFJs tend to hide them. If you are an INFJ, you might see yourself in these habits. If you know an INFJ, you might gain a better understanding of what they're dealing with behind the scenes. This video isn't about labeling anyone. It's about bringing light to the quiet patterns that shape the INFJ experience. And hopefully, it helps INFJs feel a little more seen and a little less alone. Habit number 1. Masking true feelings. INFJs are good at reading people, and they often know exactly what someone wants to hear or see. Because of this, they learn early how to fit in by hiding their real thoughts and feelings. They mask. It's not lying, it's protecting. INFJs put on a version of themselves that feels safe for the situation they're in, even if it doesn't match what they really feel inside. This habit starts small. Maybe they smile when they're upset. Maybe they agree with something they don't believe in, just to avoid conflict. Over time, it becomes automatic. They start to act in ways that feel more accepted, less risky. They show calmness even when they're anxious. They offer help even when they're exhausted. They make small talk even when they feel disconnected. On the outside, this makes them seem easygoing and polite. People might think they're relaxed or peaceful, but inside, INFJs are often hiding stress, sadness, or sadness. They do it so well that even close friends might not notice. This can lead to loneliness because the INFJ feels unknown. No one sees the real struggle behind their smile. Masking becomes a habit because it works. It helps them move through social situations without being judged. It protects them from being too vulnerable. But it also creates a split between who they are and how they appear. That split can grow over time, leading to emotional exhaustion. This is especially true for INFJs who have been misunderstood in the past. If they've been told they're too sensitive or too intense, they learn to hide that part of themselves. They might talk less about their deeper interests. They might avoid saying how much something bothers them. They might laugh when they feel like crying. Masking also shows up in how they manage their body language. INFJs often train themselves to stay still, avoid fidgeting, and keep a neutral face. They study how people respond to them and they adjust. This makes them good at blending in. But it also means they spend a lot of energy trying to seem okay when they're not. The cost of this habit is high. Over time, INFJs may lose touch with what they really feel. They may struggle to express themselves, even in private. They may feel like no one knows the real them, and that can lead to sadness, even depression. But INFJs keep this habit hidden. They don't want to seem fake or weak. They don't want to explain why they do it, especially if they don't have the words. So they keep smiling. They keep masking, and most people never see the effort behind it. Habit number 2. OverAnalyzing social interactions. After any social interaction, whether it's a deep talk or just small talk, many INFJs go over the conversation in their head, again and again. They think about what they said, what the other person said, how they looked, what their tone meant, what they might have done wrong. It can be exhausting. This isn't just being reflective. It's a kind of mental loop that's hard to shut off. INFJs notice small things, a pause in a sentence, a change in tone, a shift in body language. And because they care so much about how others feel, they replay the moment to check if they missed something or made a mistake. This kind of overthinking is often tied to anxiety. It comes from wanting to be kind, not hurt anyone, not be misunderstood. But it becomes a heavy habit. It takes something small, like a casual goodbye, and turns it into a full review session. The INFJ might wonder, did I seem rude? Did I sound fake? Did they mean what they said? Are they upset with me? The worst part is that this analysis usually doesn't bring answers. It just brings more doubt. INFJs can get stuck in their heads, questioning things that the other person probably didn't even notice. And yet it feels so important to figure it out. This habit also leads to avoidance. INFJs might stop reaching out because they fear saying the wrong thing. They might take longer to reply to messages because they want to find the perfect words. They might even cancel plans to avoid the stress of wondering how the interaction will go. Even when things go well, INFJs may still overanalyze. They might worry they were too honest or not honest enough, too emotional or too cold. They fear being misunderstood, and that fear drives the habit even more. It's like their mind won't let the moment rest. This isn't something they usually talk about. To others, they might seem calm and collected. But inside, their brain is running through every possible mistake. And because they don't want to seem needy or insecure, they keep it all inside. Over time, this habit wears them down. It can make friendships feel stressful. It can make social life feel like a test they're always trying to pass. And it can make the INFJ feel distant, not because they don't care, but because they care too much. But most people never see it. They just see someone who's thoughtful, someone who listens. They don't see the hours of thinking that come after. They don't see the self-doubt. And that's why this habit stays hidden. Habit number 3, perfectionism in creative endeavors. INFJs are often drawn to creative work, whether it's writing, art, music, design, or even planning something thoughtful for someone. They like to create things that feel meaningful. But behind that creativity is a habit many people don't see, perfectionism. Not the loud kind, where someone boasts about high standards, but the quiet kind, where nothing ever feels good enough to share. This habit usually starts from a strong inner vision. INFJs often have a clear idea of how something should feel. Their creativity is tied to emotion, purpose, and personal meaning. So when they start a project, they're not just making something. They're trying to capture something deep. That can be beautiful, but also stressful. Because when the final result doesn't match the vision in their head, it feels like a failure. This kind of perfectionism can lead to long delays. INFJs might start a story, a song, a drawing, and then leave it unfinished. Not because they don't care, but because they care too much. They want every detail to feel just right, and when it doesn't, they step back. Sometimes for days, sometimes for years. They also hesitate to share their work. Even when it's good, they doubt it. They worry it's not enough, not original, not worth attention. And because INFJs are private people to begin with, this self-doubt mixes with their natural need for privacy. The result? Dozens of half-finished journals, unpublished drafts, projects no one ever sees. This habit can also show up in group work. INFJs may hold back ideas until they're fully formed. They may not speak up until they feel something is perfect. This makes them seem quiet or slow to contribute, but really, they're editing everything in their head before they say it. Perfectionism also steals the joy out of the process. What should feel like a creative outlet becomes stressful. It's no longer about expression, it's about approval. Shushan. Even if no one else is watching, INFJs often feel like they have to earn the right to create. This makes their work heavy, even when the topic is light. Over time, this habit can block growth. The more they wait for perfect, the less they produce. And the less they create, the more distant they feel from that part of themselves. It becomes a cycle of pressure and silence. They want to share, but only if it's flawless. Most people never see this side of them. They see the thoughtful person who seems talented but quiet. They don't know about the hours spent revising one sentence, or the courage it takes to show even one small thing. That's why this perfectionism stays hidden. It's wrapped in silence, but inside it weighs heavy. Because INFJs are creators, and when perfectionism stops them from creating, it also stops them from feeling fully alive. Habit number 4. Avoiding conflict at all costs. Many people avoid conflict, but INFJs take it to a deeper level. For them, conflict doesn't just feel uncomfortable, it feels unsafe. They often go to great lengths to avoid it, even if it means staying quiet about something that really matters. Even if it means letting others take more space than they should. This habit usually comes from sensitivity. INFJs feel tension quickly. A sharp tone, a raised voice, or a cold look can make their whole body react. They may not show it on the outside, but inside, it hits hard. Because they care so much about emotional balance, they'll often do whatever they can to keep the peace. This leads to some quiet habit. They may say it's fine when it's not. They may change plans, opinions, or needs just to avoid making things uncomfortable. They might agree with someone even when they strongly disagree, just to keep the mood calm. Over time, this habit creates problems. INFJs begin to feel unseen. They might start to think their needs don't matter, or that expressing them will only cause trouble. They hold in anger until it turns into sadness. They swallow their opinions until they start to disappear. This avoidance can also hurt relationships. On the outside, the INFJ might seem agreeable and kind, but inside, they may feel distant or even resentful. When someone never knows what an INFJ really thinks, it's hard to build something real. And when the INFJ doesn't feel safe to speak, they slowly withdraw. Conflict avoidance also makes it hard for INFJs to set boundaries. They want to say no, but they don't. They want to ask for space, but they smile instead. They want to be honest, but they choose silence. Because in their mind, honesty might break the peace. And peace, even if it's fake, feels better than tension. This can even show up in small things. A waiter brings the wrong order. They say nothing. A friend makes a hurtful joke. They laugh it off. A coworker takes credit. They let it slide. These moments seem small, but they add up. The INFJ walks away feeling frustrated and invisible. What makes this habit hard to break is the guilt that comes with standing up for themselves. Even when they do speak up, INFJs often feel bad afterward. They replay the moment. They wonder if they were too harsh. They worry about how the other person felt. This makes them pull back again, back into the habit of silence. Most people don't see this. They see someone who's easy to get along with, someone who doesn't cause drama. But they don't see the stress that builds up inside. They don't see the times the INFJ cried alone after smiling in public. They don't see the effort it takes to avoid something that feels so simple to others. And that's why this habit stays hidden. It looks like kindness, but it comes from fear, and that fear leaves a mark that others never notice. Habit number 5. Sensory overload in crowded environments. INFJs often seem calm on the outside, but put them in a crowded, noisy space, and they might start to feel like they're coming apart inside. Bright lights, loud sounds, people talking over each other, it all adds up fast. INFJs are highly sensitive, and their nervous system reacts strongly to sensory input. But because they don't want to make a scene, they usually hide how overwhelmed they feel. This can happen in places like malls, airports, parties, even classrooms. An INFJ might walk in feeling fine and walk out feeling completely drained. The noise, the lights, the constant movement, it all demands attention, and their brain tries to take it all in at once. There's no off switch. They may not be able to focus. They might feel tense or dizzy. Their heart rate can go up, and their mind starts to race. Some INFJs describe it like their skin is too thin, like everything is just too much. But because they don't want to seem difficult or dramatic, they keep smiling. They keep nodding. They push through. This habit of pushing through leads to shutdown later. After the event, INFJs often need hours or even days to recover. They might cancel plans, disappear from messages, or sleep more than usual. It's not laziness, it's recovery. Their brain and body need quiet after being pushed too far. This sensitivity also shapes their choices. INFJs might avoid busy places without explaining why. They might sit at the edge of a room near the exit. They might leave early or turn down invites without a clear reason. People may see this as antisocial, but really, it's self-protection. The hardest part is when INFJs don't even realize what's happening. They might just feel off, angry, sad, or numb, and not connect it to the sensory overload they just experienced. This makes it harder to plan ahead or explain their needs to others. Many INFJs create private coping habits. They carry headphones, sunglasses, or calming tools. They plan escape routes before going to events. They memorize where the bathrooms or quiet areas are. They don't talk about these habits, but they use them all the time. What makes this habit so hidden is that it looks like nothing. The INFJ doesn't melt down. They don't shout. They don't panic in public. They just go quiet. They freeze, and then they disappear. People don't see the overload. They only see the silence. And that's why this habit stays in the shadows. Because INFJs are experts at looking calm, even when they're falling apart inside. Habit number 6. Difficulty delegating tasks. INFJs like to be in control, not because they're controlling, but because they care deeply about how things turn out. They want the work they do to be meaningful, thoughtful, and well executed. That's why one of the habits they hide is the struggle to delegate tasks. They often feel like if something really matters, they need to do it themselves. This comes from a few places. First, INFJs have very specific ideas about how things should be done. Their inner vision is strong. They can see the finished result clearly in their minds, and they worry that someone else won't understand it the same way. Trusting someone else to carry that out feels risky. Second, INFJs care about people's feelings. If they ask someone to help and the result falls short, they don't want to hurt that person's feelings by giving feedback. So instead of facing that awkward moment, they avoid it altogether. They take on the whole job. This habit can show up in school projects, at work, and even in personal relationships. An INFJ might stay late at work redoing someone else's part. They might host a party and refuse any help. They might take over group decisions because they worry others won't think through the emotional details the way they would. At first, this seems like dedication. People may even praise them for it. "You're so responsible," they hear. "You always do everything." But that praise hides the real issue. They're doing too much, and it's slowly wearing them down. The more they take on, the more stressed they become. They try to balance everything, often in silence. They may start to feel resentful, but they don't express it. They may feel trapped by their own sense of duty. They wanted things done a certain way, so they said yes. But now they're exhausted and overwhelmed, and no one knows. It's not that INFJs think others are less capable. It's that they fear losing meaning in the process. They worry that by handing off a task, they're handing off the heart behind it. And to them, heart matters most. This habit can also stem from past experiences. If they've been let down before, they become less willing to ask again. If someone mocked or minimized their attention to detail, they may feel it's easier to just take over next time. Over time, this becomes a cycle. The INFJ becomes the one who always handles things. Others expect it. The INFJ doesn't complain, but inside, the stress builds. They may start to feel like they're the only one who cares, even when they're surrounded by people. That kind of loneliness is hard to describe. Most people don't see this habit. They see someone helpful, organized, and capable. They don't see the late nights, the anxiety, the emotional weight. And because INFJs rarely talk about how overwhelmed they are, the habit stays hidden. Letting go is hard for them, but it's necessary. Learning to trust others, even if things aren't done perfectly, is part of their growth. Because INFJs don't have to carry everything alone, and they don't have to prove their care by doing everything themselves. The INFJ may be quiet, but their mind is loud. Their habits run deep, shaped by care, vision, and a strong need to protect both themselves and others. These habits, masking emotions, overthinking social moments, seeking perfection, avoiding conflict, managing sensory overload, and refusing to delegate, don't come from weakness. They come from trying to survive in a world that often misunderstands depth. They don't always have words for these habits. Most of the time, they carry them alone. But understanding these hidden behaviors brings light to what the INFJ experiences beneath the surface. It shows us how complex, thoughtful, and sensitive they really are, and how much they do that goes unnoticed. If you're an INFJ, know this: these habits are not flaws. They're responses to a world that moves fast, talks loud, and often misses the quiet strength you bring. You don't have to hide forever. There's space for your depth. There's value in your honesty. And if you know an INFJ, remember this: what seems calm might be effort. What looks easy might be a habit formed from pain. The more you see what's hidden, the more you'll understand the quiet power behind their eyes.